At 7:03, we'll have Burgess Vitale lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America and to the
It's-
republic under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Motion that the Board of Mayor and Burgess approve the minutes of the regular meeting, March 7th, 2023, and special meetings of March 16th, 2020, March 23rd, 2023. Public hearing of March 23rd, 2023, for members of the year. Are we doing the public hearing first? Yeah. Second.
And you're right.
I almost went to the other.
You're right. And so we will, let's go to the public hearing. We have the agenda.
We already told you.
All right, so we went out of order and for the minutes, we'll come back to that. And I will open the public hearing on the Fair Rent Commission at 7:05 p.m. So this is a public hearing to discuss the proposed adoption of ordinance for 136, Fair Rent Commission, hereby creating a new section 219 to 221 reserve and a new division 1.5 Fair Rent Commission, section 2-22 to 2-30 in chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the Borough of Naugatuck. Legal notice of this hearing has been published in the Republican American newspaper on March 30th, 2023 and April 2nd, 2023. There will be a recording of this public hearing and everyone will be given an opportunity to speak. To commence the public hearing, I would like Attorney Fitzpatrick to give us an overview of the Fair Rent Commission ordinance. I would note that this ordinance is mandated by the state of Connecticut. It has to be in place before the end of our fiscal year. So we will try and adopt it tonight. If there are any questions or we need further information, we'll do it next month. But Attorney Fitzpatrick, could you please take us through this ordinance?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board and members of the public. For the record, Ned Fitzpatrick representing the Borough Council. What we're going to do tonight, I'll go through the existing proposed ordinance with you. As the mayor indicated, this was an ordinance that was, or a set of regulations rather, that was required by the legislature. They require towns to adopt a Fair Rent Commission ordinance, or Fair Rent Commission rather, pursuant to a series of statutes that they passed. This of course was all in response to the I'd say long-standing legislative outcry about lack of suitable housing for many people, and also for to address the excessive rents and rental charges, which it was felt have been placed on tenants. Again, it's a bigger problem than just meets the eye, of course, but this is the way they addressed it in this instance. So the first paragraph deals with the creation of the commission and what the purposes are, and that is to control and eliminate excessive rental charges. Further on in the ordinance, it determines what the criteria are for making that judgment. It also talks about the membership of the commission, which is next. It was suggested and discussed with some of the members and the subcommittee. It was terrific. That perhaps 3 members would be a good number. There have been some suggestions as 5. Various communities have 5, some have 7. Again, that's a legislative determination. That's up to you. The draft that's proposed is for 3, and also 2 alternates. And if you notice in paragraph 1B, it talks about and requires that one of the members shall be a landlord and one shall be a tenant. Obviously, the purpose there is straightforward. It's to provide some balance to the commission, so it'll provide perspectives from both sides of at least 2 sides of an excessive rental application or an application for a hearing. The 3rd member could be neither. So that's what 1B provides. There's also the alternate provisions there, and the statute requiring minority representation, it was also applies here. So there can't be more than it can't be a full commission of Democrats or Republicans. So there has to be at least one of each party as a member. It can't be more than 2/3 is what the statute actually said. So if it's 3, it can't be more than 2. Section 2 talks about the powers of the commission. The commission actually has significant authority, and the commission actually decides and makes a determination about after they investigate complaints. They have the right to conduct hearings. They have the right to issue subpoenas, which is very significant. They also have the right to determine whether the rent is harsh or unconscionable. And they are also, and those criteria are further discussed as to what goes into making that decision. And there's also a catch-all that allows them to use other factors that they deem appropriate. But when you go through the rest of that section, especially section 3, that's where the details, and that's the criteria that the commission has and they're supposed to utilize. And that includes, what are the rents in the community, essentially? What are the sanitary conditions applicable to the location? What are the number of residential, what are the bathtub showers? What kind of services are included? For example, did the landlord, the legislative history was such that there were questions about, did the landlord include heat last time and now he's not? And that's an issue. And that's shown up in number 4 there. If you see that, that's where that's reflected. The number of the bedrooms, and I don't want to go down every one of the items. Everybody can read what they are. There's a question too of, what are the taxes in the property? What is the overhead associated with maintaining the property? What are for example, what are the capital costs of maintaining it, even amortized over a certain period of time? And that the commission can consider that. The other is number 8 is interesting because it talks about the compliance with the ordinances of the borough and also the statutes. And that is regarding health and safety. And this is it's a common issue that the landlord wants to raise the rent, but the tenant claims, well, there's a housing code violation here. There's maybe some infestations of either bugs or critters, or there's some other health and safety violations, such as access and egress could be fire code violation. So that's where number 8 comes into play. Number 9 talks about the income. So the income of the petitioner also is a factor in this determination, along with the amount and frequency of rent. Also, whether or not the tenant has caused damage to the premises. Of course, that'll be a subject of considerable debate, which it is now in the housing court. The next part deals with the process of the hearing of the complaints. And wait, before I get there, Section B of 3B does provide that the rent may be only increased to the extent that such an increase is deemed fair and equitable. So that the commission has considerable discretion to determine, one, whether an increase is merited, two, how much it should be, and later on, you'll see how should it be implemented, if at all. And it may be implemented. They have the discretion to determine whether or not it should be implemented now, never, or over a period of time. And so there's a significant amount of power granted to this commission. Section 4 deals with the process. And this talks about how it works. So if a tenant files a complaint, the tenant is not, if the landlord increases rents by, I don't know, 20%, if the tenant protests and files a complaint, the tenant doesn't have to pay the increase while the complaint is pending. The tenant pays the last agreed upon rent. And the landlord is not allowed to evict the tenant while the action is pending based on a non-payment of rent. Now, provided the tenant pays the last agreed upon rent, the tenant can't just say, "Hey, I'm paying nothing." The tenant has to pay the last agreed upon rent, and there's an escrow provision you'll see later on in the ordinance, and which addresses that. The next part is that if there's housing code or health code violations, the commission notifies the appropriate agency. And in our instance, it might be the fire marshal, the building inspector, it could be the health department. Of course, we have a district. And the commission, as I said before, has subpoena power. So there will be a hearing, and that's addressed later on. The hearing has to be within 30 days after the complaint is filed. So this isn't something that's designed to be protracted over a number of years. This hearing process is legislatively designed to be prompt. The hearings are in a very short time frame, and the commission has subpoena power to bring in the relevant municipal officials who may be involved. Again, if the tenant is claiming there are code violations. The rest of that section talks about multiple complaints. And again, they, as in every case, they recommend that the parties reach a resolution. And so the commission may have, the commission staff may act as an informal conciliator. Now, I'm not sure exactly who the commission staff is. I see Lori Rotello there in the distance. I'm not going to see it. I'm not going to implicate her as staff, but it sounds to me it may end up there. And I'm not sure how the mayor and the board wants to do that, but they do recommend resolution. And I would say that a lot of these would be resolved if they were made. If they are made. The other part I wanted to mention is that this applies to mobile homes as well. It's not just to, first, second, or third floor, single family residences, 3-family houses, 2-family houses, all the multiple residential units. It applies to mobile homes as well. The other, and then E talks about the time frames, as I mentioned before, and the commission has the right to continue the matter, and they have to make a decision within 30 days after the hearing process is complete. Again, it's designed to be a fairly compact time frame, and if that's, from a administrative hearing point of view, that's a pretty compact time frame. The other part of that is that when they make a decision, again, as I mentioned earlier, they can order that the rent be limited to a certain amount, the new rent increase. They can keep it the same. They have the power under B, which is very interesting, 5B, to determine what is fair and equitable. Fair and equitable. That's in the end, they're given very, very broad. They're giving a lot. They're being given a lot of discretion here in judgment, which goes to the point that was raised by others, including the mayor at the last meeting, that the members of the commission here, I recommend, and we all do, should be people that are quite experienced in the marketplace on both the landlord side and the tenant side. The other parts that I want to go through are just quickly are that once they issue they can issue a decision, and if there's no compliance, you'll see that there's some statutory, by the way, Connecticut statutory penalties if there is no compliance. And if they do issue an order under Section 6, the landlord cannot retaliate. So the landlord is not allowed when, and actually it's before decision, when a complaint is made, a landlord is not allowed to evict based on the fact that the tenant hasn't paid the increased rent. The landlord can evict if the tenant doesn't pay the last agreed upon rent. But the proposed rent increase is effectively in limbo until a decision is made by the board. Let's see what's really next. It's again, there's no, if a tenant files a complaint, the landlord can evict him as a retaliatory action. In other words, just because he filed a complaint, the landlord is not allowed to evict a tenant on that basis. Or if it'll be up to the commission to decide whether it's a disguised eviction, and that's a current dilemma in the housing court as well, in the housing court in Waterbury. And the Section 7 deals with the appeals. So when the commission renders a decision, either side has a right to appeal to the Superior Court with regard to whatever injury they felt they've had or how they've been wronged by the commission. Otherwise, the decision it is final. And by the way, the appeal itself does not stay the order. So that when the commission decides, and if someone wants to appeal, it's the commission decision continues until the appeal is over. So a landlord or a tenant doesn't get to just by the fact that they appealed, does not get an opportunity to hold to stop the commission's action. And I think that's an important provision at the end of Section 7. Section 8, as I mentioned before, deals with fines. Those are all statutory. It also deals with the commission is allowed to bring a civil action on their own. If there is for example, if there's an order issued to, abate a fire code violation that the commission feels is extremely hazardous to the health and safety of maybe not just that tenant, but the other tenants in a building, in a structure, the commission has the right to bring an injunction action to the Superior Court. So, that's a very significant set of powers in section outlined in Section 8B. So, with that, the only thing I didn't mention with that review was the membership terms were deemed to be 4 years. Of course, initially the intent of the statute was that they be staggered. So initially, that would be up to the mayor and the board how you want to do the terms initially, and again, how many. So that's the summary, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Before we get to questions, I'll just note we've had a strong response from people who want to serve, so.
Good.
The three
Good.
number, I think, came from the feeling that we might not get a lot of, response, but we've had a fairly significant response, so. I'm thinking, like in my mind, we should go back to 5 plus 2 alternates. And then, of course, 3 would be a quorum, so, you could still get by, but we've got at least 7 or 8 people who want to be on the commission. I'm gonna interview all of them, but, they all seemed, reasonable, so, it's a stronger than anticipated request for a position. But
Excellent.
at this time, let's take Burgess questions first. Charles.
I had a question, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying about the number of people on it. The language says that the initial 3 members, the regular members, no more than one could be, at least one has to be a landlord, at least one has to be a tenant, but there's no specification for the alternates. What if both alternates were landlords, or both alternates are tenants? A alternate could stack.
So my inclination, if we had 5, would be to have 2 landlords, 2 tenants, and 1 community member, non-landlord tenant, so it wouldn't be swayed, but that's a good question, that's just my feeling, but I guess that would, come down to next month, we would appoint the members. So, I think all we have to do tonight is pick a number, and then we can, well, we, 2 landlords, 2 tenants, 1, community member, business person who's not a landlord or a tenant. But anything close to that is fine, and then minority representation as well, so.
Right.
I think those are our only limitations.
That's right.
My suggestion would have been to make the alternates, you can't have both alternates be landlords. Both alternates can't be
Like
tenants.
that too.
So put that into
Oh.
the active ordinance, so that that's specified for the future, so no one can stack. If they, wanted to stack one way or the other.
Agree, yeah.
Okay.
I have some questions.
Okay, Rocky.
So what if the landlord was a corporate entity out of state? What would happen with the hearings?
In terms of what? You mean the process, the enforcement? What do you mean?
I'm assuming the process would be the same, but what if
Right.
would the landlord have to have a representative there? And if they're out of state, if they're in New York, California, somewhere and own an apartment building here, how would they attend the hearing?
They would send a representative. There's a notice requirement that the ordinance has, and it's also required by state law. So and it's a due process requirement. So they would be given notice. And the way notices locally are done is through the assessor's office. So whoever gets the tax bill, and unless they provide an alternate address, that's where the notice would go.
So then they could appoint their building manager as their representative.
Correct. And many, happens all the time. Yes. Mhm.
The other question is on the members. What, the minority representation seems a little bit hard. What if you had a landlord that was a Democrat and a tenant that was a Republican? Wouldn't you have to have alternates of the same party? Because otherwise, if one landlord is a Democrat and the alternate landlord is a Republican, now you've screwed up your minority representation.
Let's also not forget our largest category of unaffiliated voters.
Right. Right. And the number is 2/3. So which means that the number of sitting members can't be more than 3. Or actually, yeah, more than 4. So it's got to be 3. So it's going to be 3-2 or 3-1-1 or 3-0-2 or 2-0-2, 2-0-3. I'm not sure how you'll do it, but.
Then my other question is determination of excessive rent.
Yes.
Where will the information come from? How will they obtain it? How are they gonna know furniture and furnishings and equipment in comparative rentals?
Okay, that's where there's two points to that question, answer. One is the tenant has to supply the information as to when he files a complaint, he has to indicate what's included in his current rent and whether the unit is furnished or not. He also has to indicate whether or not he's claiming a code violation. So that's information that a tenant would have to provide.
I'm not talking about.
The experience of the comes into play with what is the market. The tenant has the right to present evidence and say, hey, 3 houses in a row down the road, they're paying $1,100 a month, and they have a 2-bedroom unit, and my landlord just jacked me up to $1,650, and their units are furnished, and mine isn't. Or mine is, but it's similar, but I'm paying $500 more. So that's not what the market is. And so the criteria is that the panel determines what that market is. And that's why we mentioned it last time, if you recall, the members of the panel have to be pretty savvy as to what the marketplace is presenting.
Well, would the members of the panel know the furnishings and equipment in other houses? In other rentals?
Well, it's up to the tenant has the burden here to show this or to present it. And so, again, if he's going to show that the 3 houses in a row are furnished and they pay the same, they pay $500 a month less than I do, and the landlord's pays those utilities, and he's paying mine, and those are furnished. Well, has to provide that to the commission, because the commission has to have evidence. And by the way, there's the right of examination, cross-examination, and the presentation of any and all evidence to this commission. So
would they also take into consideration, my apartment building has a mortgage, the other one doesn't, so the landlord has less cost?
So, good question. That was discussed in the history and the committees when they were discussing the bill. So what they did was they put that in a category called overhead. If you see that section that deals with taxes and overhead, it's not specifically mentioned, but the commission can certainly consider the overhead associated with the unit. One would be a mortgage taxes, insurance, maintenance, capital improvements, an allocation of a certain amount of money every year towards the replacement of the roof, the plumbing, the furnace, and so on. Yeah, those would all be relevant considerations. And the commission under the statute, under this regulation, has authority to.
And my last question is, the income from an increase, they need to know if it will be reinvested in improvements
Right.
to the accommodations.
Right.
How will they? How will they know?
They can require, I would suggest, so this is, the short answer is that this is a microcosm of what happens in the housing court. And they're trying to remove a lot of the litigation of the housing court, which is very, very much backed up. And so what happens is that the court would say, okay, I'm going to recess this for 30 days, continue for 30 days. And I want you, landlord, to show me that you've paid or you've replaced the fire doors, the fire rated doors that constitute fire code violations. And when you come back in 30 days, then we'll recess the court until then you show me that. It's really the same thing, but it's on an administrative local scale, and it keeps people out of court. So the commission can require it. The answer is the commission can require that and show that and demand.
I'm sorry.
And demand proof. And they can also have, if the fire door situation, they could have, they could have the fire marshal or one of the assistants go over and inspect and give them a report.
So I'm paying a lower rent until the commission renders a decision. Is that once the decision is rendered, is the higher rent retroactive?
The commission has the authority to make the rent retroactive to the time in whole or in part, or not at all.
Because I can see where that would be, put a burden on a renter who didn't put away $500 a month for the past however long this takes.
Well,
and now he needs
yes,
money.
but the ordinance requires the renter to pay the last month's rent. So let's say we're using an example, 1,100 to 16. The tenant is required, if he wants to avail himself of the Fair Rent Commission's authority here, he has to pay the last month's rent. And there's an escrow provision which is also in here. He has to pay the last month's agreed rent. So he'd have to pay the 1,100 while the matter is pending.
But he wouldn't have to pay the 1,600.
Correct.
But 10 months down the road, he may have to pay back.
Well,
$5,000.
maybe it might be all in part. They can make it prospective. It's in their discretion, which is why it's important to have some members with some judgment and knowledge and
Thanks.
wisdom on this panel.
Thank you. That's it.
Well,
All right. Any other Burgess questions?
Yeah.
Rand?
Councilman, 223, Fitch, 9, and so forth, they talk about code violations, and you just mentioned that if there is a concern over code violations, you bring a fire marshal in or a building inspector in. And if they find a code violation and they find that the house is not safe at that particular time, I noticed there was no mention of the Uniform Relocation Assistance
Right.
Act. Who pays while the people are being temporarily housed elsewhere?
all right. So under the another good question. So there is no reference in this ordinance or the statute or the ordinance because it's statutorily, we don't have any power that legislature didn't give us, of course. But the Uniform Relocation Act provides that if a town official renders a premises uninhabitable, it's the town's responsibility to pay that. Now, if the landlord doesn't pay it, the owner is primarily responsible.
Slow it down. It's the town's responsibility to find alternative housing, and if
Right.
you can't, then take care of it. But that's a different statute. To me,
It is.
If that comes up, we have to follow the existing
Right.
statute, I would say.
And we've done that. We've done that many times, as you know, in the past few years.
It's a separate.
Mhm.
All right, any further Burgess questions? All right, we'll open it up to the public. Anyone in the room or on Zoom who would like to make a comment? If you're on Zoom, you can raise your hand, go in the chat box, or otherwise make it known that you'd like to speak. Jim?
All right, we have one on Zoom. Go ahead, Len. Len, you're muted.
Yeah, I think I got it. We okay now? Yeah. Okay, yeah, good evening, Len Yanelli, Chestnut Street. I'm the Community Outreach Director of the Guntown Group for a Cultural Environmental Committee. Yeah, and when it comes to housing, I noticed the statute does involve conditions, not just rent, but the conditions. And we've been in discussion with the number of commissions in town about considering the outside of where people are living, not just the inside. And there are real mental health reasons for this. and research behind it. For example, there's what's called a 330-300 rule, which means that every person where they're residing, when they look out a window, they should be able to see 3 trees. They should have, when they walk out, 30% shade, and they should be within 300 meters, which would be, what's that, close to 1,000 feet from a green open space. And some of that research has been done in Barcelona, Spain, but they're finding out there's a real mental health correlation if those criteria are there. Now, we've been raising that with the Planning Commission. We realize that lots of times has to do with apartment complexes. You know, how that would be dealt with. For example, if you just had a live-in landlord and one tenant, is a very different situation, right? Compared to a housing complex involving many tenants and maybe probably an absentee landlord. We have housing going up right now in Union City, for example, that I would think, you know, it would be really good to consider this 330-300 rule. But again, I mean, you know, how you apply this, how it's decided on things like this, looks like it would be in the hands of this 5-member commission. The second point concerning who's on the commission, I think it'll be really important, really important that there be representation of people of color. I think, you know, if just given the history in the country alone would dictate that you really have to make sure. I know there's no requirement, at least from what the town lawyer has gone through, but I would really urge the mayor and Burgesses, when this 5-member commission and 2 alternates is put together, to make sure there are people of color on that commission. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Is there any further public comment? James Higgins.
Hi, everyone. James Higgins, 67 Michael Lane for the record. If this commission, well, if this whole thing is around bringing cases out of housing court and bringing it to the commission, do we understand what that caseload is going to look like on this commission?
So that's not what it's really for, but that could happen. So the answer is, I think we do understand it is a mandate, so we have to do it. To me, as I said last time, the most important part of this is that we select people with wisdom, savvy, common sense, knowledge of the market on both sides. And if we have that, I think we'll do okay. But there is a potential for a lot of cases. I agree with you.
And then follow up to that, if there is a potential for a lot of cases, is this commission going to be a paid commission to compensate people for their time?
So the answer is, it is not a paid commission.
That's all.
Thank you.
We have another one on Zoom.
Okay.
Allison, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Allison Sancherico, Rain Dance Circle. I like the idea of the 5 people, and it should be as diverse as possible for sure. I agree with Len about that. I did have one question, although that's kind of yeah, no, never mind. I answered my own question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right, last call. Any further public comments? All right, so going through what we've discussed, I'm leaning towards 5. with 2 landlords, 2 tenants. And I would note that, as far as diversity, equity, and inclusion, we will also be adopting tonight a fair housing resolution, which includes all of those factors. So that is inherent in the entire process. But, do we want, I guess the first question is, do we want 3 or 5? Is there anyone that doesn't want 5? Okay, so
If for some reason 5 seems to not be working out for any reason, can it be changed?
Can always,
it can, and that would mean you'd need 3 to have a quorum.
Yeah.
Are you doing 5 with 2 alternates?
Yeah, I would say 5 with 2 alternates, and the alternates should be, one should be a landlord and one should be a tenant.
And if you had 3, 2 would be 4, and you don't want 2 to be 4.
Right. So 5 makes more sense.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
All right, is there anything else? If we're gonna vote on, if we're gonna close the public hearing and vote on this tonight, is there any other aspect of this ordinance that anyone would like to modify? All right, is there anyone who would, who's opposed to closing the public hearing? You good?
Yeah.
All right, so I will close the public hearing at 7:45. And we will return to
Item 3,
item 3,
as if read.
and I think we have a second, but Mike, why don't you second it?
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the minutes. Are there any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion, Board of Members to approve the monthly reports of March, each member receive copies for review.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so, I think tonight's meeting will be relatively short based on the lengthy meetings we've had recently.
Can I put a wager on that?
Yeah, well, last time you won, so,
Yeah, cash.
what you, so, I'll go, what time is it?
What do you think, 8:30?
7:46.
8:52.
He's hedging his bets.
8:45?
8:52.
I don't know about executive.
Never know. Jim, go to DraftKings, see what the over under is.
One moment.
9:08, Jim.
I'll say it'll be shorter than usual.
Okay.
11.
Before Bob's
bedtime.
Also, Andreas, pay attention. Breaking news. All right, our spring festival, as you already know, is May 20th. Also, on that day, we will be doing the opening of the skateboard park. It's actually gonna be the 19th, 20th, and 21st, but the 20th is gonna be the prime day. I think they've lined up 8 bands, food trucks,
Holy mackerel.
and exhibitions, and there'll be a lot going on there. Also, on the same day, we will be having the food truck festival on parcel B with a car show in between. So this is gonna be a busy day. Megan,
I heard that there's exits being closed on the 20th and, I have breaking news that the track's hosting NBL.
I know.
that
Yeah,
day.
so that's,
In consideration.
well, that's part of the plan, so.
Okay.
So let me say this, last year, we had a similar issue. And, our police department did a fantastic job with a traffic pattern and exiting off of Route 8. So the, Derek Poundstone Lieutenant Poundstone is the lead. He's coming up with a plan and he is aware and it will include how to direct people to the track meet.
Okay,
So, there's gonna be signage, left track meet, right festival, but it will be part of the equation.
okay,
And, last year I would have been very concerned about parking. But, as everyone recalls last year, we used the Uniloyal property, 86 acres, and we didn't use all of it, but, the parking worked out so well that no one was parking downtown. And there were complaints from the restaurants that they weren't getting enough activity. So, with that same traffic pattern, I think that all different aspects of Naugatuck will be busy on the same day, which would be exciting. We're gonna have a track meet with other communities. We're gonna have a car show. We're gonna have a festival. We're gonna have a food truck extravaganza. We're gonna have a skateboard park opening. So there will be a lot of activity in downtown Naugatuck, May 20th.
See if we can get Tony Hawk to show
There's gonna be exhibitions. I don't know who's gonna show up.
This is long enough.
He's not doing a whole lot of skateboarding.
Isn't he too old now?
In California.
We should do this video today of drinking a glass of milk. Doesn't spill a drop.
All right, so we will now go to public comment. So again, anyone either in the room or on Zoom who would like to make a public comment, raise your hand, go on, or go in the chat box. So first call, Jim.
All right, one on Zoom. Go ahead, Christine.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, good evening, everyone. Christine Yanelli, Chestnut Street Conservation Commissioner. I would like to take a moment tonight to mention the 500 plus acres available for active recreation at Hop Brook Lake. For over 50 years, this area has been used by many people from Middlebury, Waterbury, Naugatuck, and other towns. I can remember swimming in Hop Brook when it was a fast-running brook back in the 1950s and the 1960s, right about where the deepest part of the lake is now. Of course, that was during simpler times. Then you could stroll along a trail whistling or singing, or safely step off the trail to look at a bird's nest in the branches of a tree. Life was relaxing. Currently, there are numerous trails covering the Hop Brook area for everyone, ages 1 to 100 years old, and it's free of charge. Parents push their babies in strollers, while on the path there are dog walkers, hikers, woodland foragers, children, teenagers, and so many others. But be aware, crossbow hunters are using this same area at the same time during the day that people are walking here. Public safety is of the utmost importance. Number one, this area has been especially used during the pandemic and post-pandemic all day, every day, all year long. People should not feel stressful or fearful of crossbow hunters who shoot arrows 50 yards away from any trail in the park. Number three, this area is too small of a land space for crossbow hunting, with the increase of public use by people who need recreational exercise and need to reduce their stress level and anxiety. Number four, people are exploring and spending more time outside for mental health reasons. Number five, climate changes are allowing people to walk right into the seasons of fall and winter during hunting season. This is a major concern about public safety. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I couldn't hear everything, but, was that, you're talking about Hop Brook Park?
Yes,
Corps of Engineers.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, that's federal land, but, I'm sure crossbow hunting is not allowed there, so.
It is. It is.
It is? So, we'll look into that on the Naugatuck aspect. There's 3 towns that comprise Hopbrook Park, but, I think anyone who wants to hunt in Naugatuck has to get, permission from the town. So, no one has ever asked for permission to hunt in Hopwood Park, so we'll look into that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there any further public comment? Okay, item 7, we will go to the Naugatuck Ambulance Corps report. Okay, Kyle. You're muted, Kyle.
You're still muted, Kyle.
Sorry about that. I double clicked it, apologize. I sent the reports out earlier. I believe it was yesterday. I think everybody should have gotten it. I'll just highlight. Last month was a busy month. We covered 400 calls, with only 12 of those being mutual aid calls out of town. So a lot of calls we did last month. A couple of weeks ago, we had a Wednesday that we covered 23 calls just in the borough that all of our folks handled. Just keep that in the back of your minds. It's been getting busier and busier. I have been working with board president Ken Hanks, as well as the mayor's office and the finance office and the board of finance, working on the upcoming fiscal year request. I did meet with the board last week or the week before for a capital expense. Like I said, we've been getting busier and busier. We have had some vehicle issues going back and forth. So we're working on getting that situated. And one final thing I'd like to just let everybody know, it's on our Facebook page and our social media platforms. We did have one of the paramedics, the Waterbury Hospital paramedics that work for us in town, get injured on a call a couple of weeks ago. He's going to be out for upwards of 6 or 7 weeks. We started a GoFundMe page that's out there on our social media platform. So please feel free to share that as you can. Other than that, that's all I have.
All right, any questions for Kyle?
I just have one comment. I just want to let Kyle know that I had 2 compliments to Naugatuck Ambulance in downtown Waterbury on my job. 2 separate patients said that they, or fire department and Trinity, that they run into you guys on a call, and they had a great interaction. So that was an out of town compliment that came from downtown.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, item 8, revaluation phase in discussion. So, phase-ins are done under state law. There's a state law that we have to follow that says that you do it in a 5-year period equally, and you have to have a minimum of 25% a year that you bring back in. So 5 times 100 times 25 is 125, which you can't have 125%. You can only be 100. So the state law, there's some uncertainty to it. So we've been talking about a 40-20-20-20 plan, which I think we all like, but OPM is saying that preliminarily, they don't think we can have less than 25% in any given year. So we've, I would say, appealed that, not formally, but that our 40-20-20-20 is an average of 25. And the statute makes no sense because you can't have 25% a year for 5 years. So we're going to get clarification on that. But I think what it's gonna come down to, and before we start putting this together, we're gonna try to get permission for 40, 20, 20, 20. If we don't, or they say no, we'll play around with it, but it might be 40, 30, 30, or something along those lines. But I'm sure we're all on the same page that we want to phase in, we want it to be fair. We're gonna try and get OPM to recognize that what we're doing, really, you get to 100% in 4 years, which is 25% a year, which is what they're saying we should do. So that's the last hurdle in coming up with a plan. And I'm gonna go for the 40, 20, 20, 20. If they say absolutely not, I think I'll propose 40, 30, 30. But I just wanna toss it around here and see what you guys think.
Confused by that 25, like who did that math?
Yeah, bad math.
So unless they want you to do 4 years at 25%, is that what they're saying?
Yeah.
No, they're not saying that. They're saying that because we want to be fair and give a bigger break to the businesses at the beginning, which you can do. They're saying that the statute, it's not so much what they're saying. The statute says it can't be less than 25% in a year. But it should be 5 years, so 5 years times 25% doesn't work, so the statute is flawed.
Yeah, so they need to change the statute. We got a lot of mathematicians up here.
If you're going in the first year, it's 40, for saying 170, but you're intended to only rank stuff.
Right. Right. The idea is that you don't make it too low and have to put it all at the end, like you're deferring it. That's the whole point of the statute. You can't say 5, 5, 5, 5, 8. Right? That's the point of the statute. So, I'm gonna keep going for the 40, 20, 20, 20. If we don't get that, we'll see what 40, 30, 30 looks like.
Make it happen.
Okay? All right.
Just do it.
All right, so on item 9, let's talk about item 9 for a minute. On the tax incremental financing district committee, Charlie and Dorothy have volunteered. James Higgins has sort of volunteered. It's done a push for me.
You get voluntold?
So Shelby, Allison, myself, are automatically on. I thought Rebecca as chairman of NEDC would be good. I would also note that Ron Pugliese is automatically on. But rather than me appoint these people, I guess I want to make sure we're all good, and I'd rather do it by, I'd rather have the borough board appoint them than the mayor. But is everyone good with that configuration?
Sure, why not?
All right, so let's do this. Let's frame this I'll entertain a motion that that the following members be designated as the tax increment financing district committee. The mayor, the assessor, the controller, the chairman of NEDC, Burgess Nethcunin, Burgess Meringue, NEDC member Rebecca Zonfleet, and finance board member James Higgins.
Motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
Motion that the Board of Mayor and Burgess adopt the ordinance 136 Fair Rent Commission, hereby creating new section 2-19, 2-21 reserve and new division 1.5 Fair Rent Commission 22-22 through 2-30 in chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the Borough of Norfolk, Connecticut, as it read.
Okay. As it read, with the modification that, 2-22B state that the commission shall consist of 5 members and 2 alternates, all of whom shall be residents of the borough. Of the 5 regular members, at least 2 shall be a landlord and 2 shall be a tenant, and the alternates shall be 1 landlord and 1 tenant.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, any questions or discussion on that? All right, roll call vote. All right, it must be a roll call. Yes.
Page 7.
Okay, mayor, yes. Deputy mayor,
Yes.
former mayor,
Yes.
Rand Dembowski,
Yes.
Dorothy,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Rocky,
Yes.
Megan.
Yes.
I was waiting for you to say future mayor, who you were gonna say.
I wasn't quick enough to think of that.
I understand now. I know.
All right, so, and we'll note for the record that, Burgess, Museski, and Burgess, Mudry are absent, but it's a unanimous vote. Okay,
Once maybe even an announcer can speak to that. You're saying future mayor?
Motion that the Board of Mayor and Burgess waive the bid for the contract fiscal year 23-B 004 for qualifications for fence repair and replacement, equal fence and guardrail division.
hold on, we missed something?
We did.
No, we haven't updated it.
Oh, here we
Division
go.
of E, F, and G construction. Plainville, Connecticut is recommended by Public Works Director James Stewart.
Second.
James,
So, Eagle Fence was a bidder last year. For some reason, they fell off our recommended list, this year. They quoted us, trying to finish off, Del Gabo Field as rapidly as we can, and they quoted us last fiscal year to do the work. We're hoping to, complete the dugouts shortly and then move to the fencing. And we would like to use them. Jeremy's used them obviously in the past and had very good luck with them. Like to move forward as quickly as possible. Oh, and then they've also reduced their quote from last year even lower now that the supplies are becoming available.
all right, so it's lower than what we budgeted? The quote is lower than what we budgeted?
Originally, it's not lower than what we budgeted because we have more fencing than what we budgeted.
It's lower than what we were gonna pay last year,
Exactly.
which is higher than what we budgeted.
Yes.
But lower.
Higher but lower. I think that makes sense.
Because there's more rather than less.
There's more rather than less.
Got that.
All right, any, so you're recommending this, Jim?
Absolutely.
All right, any questions?
How quickly can they do this?
20 minutes.
Jeremy?
You know how quickly, like, they can get this fencing and stuff done?
They're ready to go. The dugouts have to go a little bit first to complete all of the fencing,
Okay.
but, they can move very quickly within the next 2 weeks.
Oh,
Start the project. They've already done some work at the skate park for us too, so.
excellent.
leaving them over there currently.
A question to, Jerry, who's involved with? Who are the baseball guys that are involved with the design of the dugouts and size? And I know we had some issues with the high school where the dugouts were a little too small when they were all done. And the layout for safety and meeting safety requirements of various speeds.
Jim and I have sat down and gone over all the rules. Right now, they're at the max right now, I believe, off the top of my head, it's 40 feet off the baseline, right? So we're about 43 right now. We're set, I forget the number off the top of my head again, 50 something from home plate. So the side of our dugout is in line with infield grass line. So we're all over it. Jim did a full design on the structure of the dugout, so
Hopefully.
I think you guys will be pretty happy.
The kids are jumping on these. All right, excellent, thank you.
All right, any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I would, note for the record that we're starting clearing the land behind Delgado Field for the second field from the land we're getting from the Connecticut Water Company. So as soon as the survey is complete, we will be starting clearing and getting ready to build that field.
Is it very wet up there, given that it's the water company property? Is it very wet?
No.
Only when it rains.
Thanks.
No,
I
that,
just didn't want drainage to be an issue. I know we have that problem down at
well,
State Hill.
drainage is an issue even when it's not wetlands, but,
Yeah,
but we will deal with the drainage, but it's not a wetland area.
okay.
All right,
Motion to board members to approve Safety Marking Inc. 255 Hancock Avenue, Bridgeport, to provide goods and services funded with fiscal year 22-23 as recommended by Police Chief Alan McAllister. Second.
Jim?
We are going to be shortly, first week in May, starting our micro paving program for the year. We were gonna do it last fall, but the company couldn't get us in on time. So we're proposing to do it in May. Part of micro paving is we have to remove any line work roads. Normally we use the state bid. The state bid has not come out. Apparently it was supposed to come out last month and it's supposed to come out this month, but it's getting to the point where it's too late. We would like to use Safety Markings. They're the company that we've used in the past and they're expecting to be on the state bid. Atlantic is the town bidder for lines. They don't do it. They would subcontract with Safety Markings to do it. We could also go with our bidder that does the micro paving, but again, they would subcontract with Safety Markings to remove the lines. So we'd like to move ahead and use them at this point.
So you're gonna do double the amount of micro paving this year?
We are planning double the amount, yes.
Considering you didn't do it in the fall.
Considering so we're actually doing, fall's work now, and we're also gonna do summer and fall's work now as well.
And you're also bringing next month the 8-year paving plan?
We are really trying hard. We're trying to get together with the utilities prior to that to make sure it all makes sense. And Jeremy and I have been working every day on it to try to make sure we can get everything in, get in, and keep it within the budget we have, expect to have.
We know how quick the utilities work.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, when we find out their plan, it's 3 months before they're supposed to dig the road.
All right, any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed?
The board of members to adopt the following fair housing resolution as it read. Second.
Okay, so, it's required that we have a fair housing resolution. We already have one. This one I think is very similar. But it goes hand in hand with our fair housing commission that we just established. And it basically provides that everyone has an equal opportunity to rent, purchase, obtain financing, etc. So there's no discrimination of any kind allowed in Naugatuck. And if we get a complaint, we will refer the complainant to the appropriate agencies and tell them what their remedies are. Any questions on that resolution? All right. Roll call vote. Megan,
Yes.
Rocky,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Dorothy,
Yes.
Fran,
Yes.
former mayor,
Yes.
deputy mayor,
See.
mayor, yes. All right. You got everything, right? So it's a unanimous vote, and we'll note that Burgess Mudry and Burgess Mazeski are absent.
Motion the Board of Mayor versus joining Exchange Club Norwood designating month of April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in the borough of Norwood.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we just note that we just made that declaration at 6 o'clock tonight on the green with the Exchange Club who have this as their one of their major projects is child abuse prevention. So every year they do a lot, and they've got that blue sign on the green and blue ribbons, buttons, they do a nice job. All right, 15.
Motion the Board of Mayor versus authorized debt controller Allison Bruce to refund the following tax refunds approved by tax collector James Goggin as if read. Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, second, public comment. Is there anyone in a room or on Zoom that would like to make a public comment? All right. Second call, go in the chat box. Or raise your hand if you'd like to make a public comment. Second call for public comment. Last call for public comment. Hearing none, we'll go to Mayor and Burgess comments. So, Megan, well, just bring us up to speed on the event this weekend. I mean, on May 20th for track and field.
So May 20th is going to be our Narcotic Valley League Championships, so that's gonna be all the schools in the NVL. Our parents are gonna be hosting concessions as a fundraiser. So we'll have, Charlie, what is it, 12 schools? I think 12 high schools that'll be there competing, starting at 9 a.m. So it should be a really nice event. It's been a long time coming for us to host this at Arctic High School. It's gonna be a lot of hands needed on deck to pull it off successfully, but I have no doubt that the coaching staff and parents will be able to do it, so. Should be a very nice day.
Maybe now is not a good time, but I understand there's some upgrades that the coaching staff would like to make,
Yes,
and they've run into some red tape at the Board of Ed. You know about that?
a little bit, yeah. I know there's been some requests for years for a second pit, which involves removing fencing.
And if we had that second pit, we could host like statewide events.
Yes.
So, I'd like you in your spare time to look into that, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Mike, Dorothy,
Well. Planning Commission last night talked about the Chipotle that's coming on Bridge Street. And so they have a plan laid out where there's also gonna be some retail space. So that's, they also have a drive-through, but it's gonna be an order online drive-through where you just pick up through the drive-through as opposed to ordering at the drive-through to reduce the amount of traffic flow. And so that sounds like a good deal. And we'll see what happens. So there should be starting the process fairly soon. So Board of Ed meeting is this week. It was moved up a week because next week is spring break, I think it is. So that's this Thursday. Also, Gigi is now selling tickets for Duck Day. So if anybody needs tickets for Duck Day, the raffle tickets, get them from Gigi. And then, I also have notices here that the Peter J. Foley Little League opening day is Sunday, the 16th of April. Is good, because we're working into the summer. And the Union City Joe Upper League Fields, they are doing their event on April 22nd.
You sure?
Yes,
So it says here in my
Oh, I
email,
thought-
I'm reading.
I thought the little leagues were
usually.
opening one day apart.
No, usually they are, but I.
Union City is struggling for coaching, so there's teams not put together yet.
So,
They're the 22nd.
Correct, they're the later of the
say
two.
that again?
16th is Peter J.
And Union City is April 22nd, 10 a.m.
Okay, right.
Yeah, normally they are one day.
Yeah.
And Peter
Union
J
City
is
a little behind.
at 1 p.m.
One of these days they'll figure it out and combine the two leagues.
And if there's anything specific you need me to bring to the Board of Ed on Thursday, let me know and I'll bring it up at public comment,
You got it.
because I'm good for public comment.
It's really a budget item.
I know, but they might think a little differently.
No, I mean, I didn't mean it's not
Yeah.
appropriate for public comment. It should
Well, if I don't
be.
do it, somebody else will, right? Some other parent will come and do it. I'll just use an incident.
Dang.
Dangle it.
I would just note that as I look at my calendar, Union City Little League opening and Earth Day are at the same
Oh,
time.
that was
So
last year. That was the thing
I
last year.
so I don't know what's
Oh,
gonna
yeah,
happen
You
this
did your
year.
proclamation last year, didn't
Yes.
you do it, Dorothy?
Can I do the
No,
proclamation?
didn't you do the mayor's Earth Day proclamation?
Yeah, I did that last year.
It may happen this year, I don't know.
Mm.
I guess I thought the Little Leagues were gonna be one day apart, but they're not, so.
Yeah,
Um,
whose decision is it to combine them? Like, who-
their
what's-
decision.
They have their board of directors,
Right, political.
both have
It's,
to dissolve what they have and build
Yeah.
a new, so.
This is, it's crazy.
Absolutely.
I mean, you guys all see the obsession my 6-year-old has with baseball, and he does not have a team.
It's ridiculous.
What age?
6.
Can't find coach pitch coaches.
Well, nobody wants to coach anymore,
And
Charlie.
believe me, I would do it, but I can't commit to, and I know everyone's got busy schedules, but it's rough.
Because the parents are nuts. It's true.
So maybe otherwise engaged in other activities.
We're gonna strike that from the record. but-
Yeah.
All right,
That's it.
trying to protect you.
That's okay.
That's all I have. Yes, I stirred up a little pot, so move on.
All right, Charlie,
Just happy, well, we have a lot of going on. We're coming off the season of reflection, the winter time, winter months are gone. It was a beautiful spring day. You know, when you think of the 3 major monotheistic religions in town, Ramadan Barak to all our Muslim friends, joyous Passover to all our Jewish friends, and to those that are Christian, happy Easter as we move forward in this spring.
what about our Native American friends?
I do not know what holiday we celebrate right now, but you can enlighten me
Great Spirit is there all the time.
all the time.
All right, Rocky,
Yes, sir.
it's time for your monthly report.
I'm cutting out everything and only doing one thing. As you know, our fellow Burgess Jan lost his dad recently. I ask that you keep him in your thoughts and prayers. And the wake is tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock until 11 at Zabriskie on North Main Street. And we've been taking good care of him and keeping him busy.
Thank you.
That's it.
Bob.
The mayor mentioned earlier about April being Child Abuse Prevention Month. It's also Autism Awareness Month. And I think they go hand in hand. Because quite often you see kids with autism that are abused. Whether intentionally or not intentionally, it happens because they're different. They're not the same as the other kids. They're not the same as the rest. And I think it is great that, we do mention that we do have a child prevention month, abuse prevention month, and autism month side by side. I was talking to the mayor earlier, and I said, sometimes you go for a ride on a Sunday, you go up to the Litchfield Hills, because it's beautiful, there's beautiful houses up there, the beautiful mansions. You never know what's going on inside those places. So, just think about that. It is very important that we address that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good, you can.
Oh, you got way out there.
All right, I would also note that on Thursday night, the Black Student Union is having a fundraiser at the high school, same time as the Board of Ed meeting. So I'll be at the basketball game most likely, but they're a they're a great group. They're going to the Civil Rights Trail in Georgia and Montgomery, Alabama. They've raised 28,000 of their goal of 37. So we're trying to help them get over the top. And, this game will be a part of that fundraiser. So I encourage everyone to go and make a contribution. And I got permission, John, for you to skip the board meeting and go to the game if you make a contribution. So, but I think that
If it's big enough, you can skip the next one too.
but it's a great thing, so, they really worked hard to raise the money. And, all those groups, when you think about it, the track and field team, with their national championship, the band, I don't know if you know this, our marching band is gonna march for the president on the 4th of July parade. In Washington DC, and we'll be raising money for them, but that's a major honor.
That's huge, yeah.
2 bands in the country, and Naugatuck was selected to march in Washington DC, so there's a lot of great stuff going on. And it's good that we all support them, and Naugatuck is always very supportive. All right, so that concludes my mayoral report. And we will go to item 19.
Motion to recess the executive session at 8:30 for discussion of filing real estate parcels A, B, C, Y, and Z, Northern Industrial Park, Section 3, Greenfield/Rotary Field. Acquisition of land for downtown parking, tax incremental financing district, Church Street, Maple Street, B&A Building, Riverview Mobile Home Estates, Guntown Road. Contracts, small city broadband, collective bargaining, fire union, street union, chapter 89 union, chapter 90 union, personnel, fire marshal, pending litigation, Board of Nordic versus Furios, inviting in John Law. Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? PM, and on matters emanating from the executive session, I will entertain the motion that I be authorized to sign an employment agreement with Edwin Dalton, our fire marshal, for a term that terminates on June 30th, 2026, as discussed in executive session.
Motion. Second.
Any questions or discussion? I'll just note that this document will be available as a public record as soon as it's signed. And we would expect that that would be soon. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, I will also entertain the motion that I'd be authorized to enter into a real estate contract to sell property at 0 Guntown Road, which is a remnant parcel owned by the borough for as discussed in executive session.
Motion. Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'll also entertain a motion that I be authorized to enter into an agreement to settle the case of Borough of Naugatuck versus Querios as recommended by the judge and our attorney and as discussed in executive session.
Motion. Second.
Questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.